Hey, Cowboys Nation! Today we're diving deep into everything happening with the Dallas Cowboys as the team navigates the tricky world of roster management, while players start returning from the injured list. Right now, the Cowboys have 52 players counting against their 53-man roster, which means they need to make some moves to create space for returning athletes. With the trade deadline already behind us, the options are limited. The team can release players, which is straightforward but sometimes harsh, or they can place players on injured reserve, whether due to legitimate injuries or strategically to stash talent for later in the season. There's one player in particular who stands out as a candidate for this type of move. But before we dive into that, let's break down who could be coming back this week and how that shakes up the roster. Marvin Overshown and Savone Rebel are set to return, and there's a strong chance we'll see them back in action imminently. Perron Winfrey is also eligible to return from injured reserve. He doesn't necessarily have to come back this week, but there's a possibility he could, depending on how the coaching staff wants to manage the roster and game day lineups. Beyond those names, there are additional players who could return later in the season, including Jack Sanborn, Trayvon Diggs, and Malik Hooker. These players have eligibility, but they have not yet been designated to return, so their timelines remain flexible. There are also several players who are unlikely to return this season, including those already ruled out for the year, like Robert Jones and Miles Sanders. Others, like Phil Maffa, appear to have been stashed on injured reserve from the start as part of a longer-term strategy. Trevor Keegan is already on IR, and players like Peyton Turner and Josh Butler have been eligible to return for some time, but have largely been held in reserve, likely with next season in mind. One offensive player who catches attention is Johnny Cornelius, the third-day draft pick from Oregon. He's been limited in practice and has only played in one game this season, primarily as the 10th man on the offensive line when injuries elsewhere forced the team's hand. With a healthy group of offensive linemen, Cornelius represents a classic example of a player the Cowboys could place on IR to preserve talent while freeing up a roster spot. Hakeem Adonai is another lineman who has seen limited action, playing just 62 snaps across 6 games. He remains behind Cornelius on the depth chart and has primarily served as an emergency option. Strategically, the Cowboys could play this slow, bringing back only the minimum number of players and potentially delaying returns from others like Perron Winfrey. This would allow the team to manage depth carefully, especially with key positions such as offensive line and defensive tackle. Speaking of the defensive line, the return of Winfrey adds another layer of complexity. The team already has depth at defensive tackle with players like Quinn Williams, Kenny Clark, and Solomon Thomas. However, with Winfrey coming back, decisions will need to be made about who to activate on game days. Players like Toya have seen limited action this season, and the team may not carry 6 active defensive linemen, meaning some tough calls will be necessary. Down the line, other players returning from IR, like Savone Rebel, could impact depth charts further, especially at cornerback. Triquiz Bridges has been filling roles on special teams and as a reserve corner, but the activation of Rebel could push him down the pecking order. Bridges has shown flashes, but remains an example of a player who could be vulnerable depending on who returns. If Trayvon Diggs comes back later in the season, the cornerback rotation could be even more crowded, potentially forcing the team to make roster adjustments or tough decisions about who sees the field. In the safety group, players like Elijah Clark are dealing with injuries that could make them candidates for IR placements, though his rib injury doesn't appear severe. His role this season has been mostly situational, stepping in when other injuries created opportunities. The potential return of Donovan Wilson adds another layer to the safety rotation, and the team will need to consider whether carrying 5 safeties on game day is practical. Malik Hooker's timeline remains uncertain, and the staff has yet to signal his return. These dynamics mean the secondary could see significant shuffling over the coming weeks as the Cowboys evaluate who is ready to contribute and how best to balance active rosters for both depth and game day impact. The linebacker room is also in flux. Deone Clark, for instance, has struggled to secure consistent playing time under the current coaching staff. Despite his athleticism in prior starts, he appears to be on the outside looking in with younger and more recently productive players like Marvin No-Show Logan Wilson, Kenneth Murray, and Maurice Hurst climbing the pecking order. If Jack Sanborn returns from IR, the team may not carry 7 linebackers, making Clark one of the most likely candidates to remain inactive or even be released depending on roster needs. Overall, the Cowboys face a balancing act between returning talent and maintaining flexibility across positions. Offensive linemen, defensive linemen, cornerbacks, safeties, and linebackers are all areas where decisions will need to be made based on health, performance, and roster strategy. The staff must weigh the immediate impact of players returning against the long-term plan for the season, managing activations, IR stashes, and potential cuts to ensure the team is positioned for both short-term competitiveness and sustained depth. Every decision will ripple through the lineup, affecting who sees the field, how game day rotations play out, and the overall chemistry of the team as it heads toward critical matchups later in the season. The intricacies of these roster moves highlight the complexity of managing a team in the NFL, especially one with championship aspirations like the Dallas Cowboys. Injuries, eligibility, and performance all intersect to create a high-stakes puzzle that requires careful thought and sometimes creative maneuvering. Whether it's deciding to slow play a return, stash a promising draft pick like a Johnny Cornelius, or adjust depth charts across multiple positions, every move matters. Fans watching at home can expect to see shifts in the active roster, special teams responsibilities, and starting lineups as these strategic decisions play out over the next few weeks. As Cowboys Nation, we get to analyze, speculate, and follow along with each move, understanding not only who is returning, but also what that means for the team structure, rotations, and potential matchups. From the offensive line battles to the defensive backfield shuffle, each decision the coaching staff makes could have a ripple effect across the entire roster. The key is balancing readiness, performance, and long-term strategy, ensuring the team is not only prepared for the next game, but also for the challenges that lie ahead as the season progresses. As we move deeper into the roster analysis, it's impossible to ignore the ripple effect that returning players will have on the Cowboys' special teams and depth rotations. With Marvian Overshone and Savone Rebel likely to see the field again soon, the coaching staff must carefully balance contributions across both offense and defense while ensuring the special teams unit remains effective. Rebel, for instance, has the versatility to play in multiple roles, but that versatility also impacts other players' opportunities. Triquiz Bridges, who has been filling in primarily on special teams and as a backup corner, may find himself pushed down the depth chart if Rebel is activated. Bridges has shown flashes of skill, but he has struggled to consistently perform at a high level, and the arrival of Rebel could limit his snaps even further. The Cowboys are faced with a familiar balancing act, prioritizing game day readiness versus long-term roster development. Cornerback rotations become particularly complicated when considering Trayvon Diggs' potential return. If Diggs comes back later in the season, the team could find itself carrying a crowded secondary on game day. Decisions will need to be made about which corners are active, which might be inactive, and whether any might even be moved to IR for strategic purposes. The defensive backfield's depth is a testament to the Cowboys' focus on maintaining versatility and injury protection, but it also creates tough choices that the coaching staff must navigate week after week. The timeline of Diggs' return remains uncertain, and with each game that passes, the staff has to weigh the benefits of waiting against the urgency of strengthening the roster for upcoming matchups. Safeties are another area where strategy plays a huge role. Elijah Clark has been contributing in a limited role due to a rib injury, and while the injury doesn't appear severe, he remains a candidate for injured reserve depending on how the team wants to manage depth. Donovan Wilson, another safety, is expected to return soon, which could further crowd the position. Additionally, Malik Hooker remains a wild card. His return has been hinted at but not confirmed, and if he does come back, the Cowboys will need to evaluate whether carrying 5 safeties on game day is sustainable or if some players will need to be moved to IR, held inactive, or otherwise managed to maintain roster flexibility. These decisions are critical not only for the current game, but for the team's ability to respond to injuries and maintain a balanced lineup as the season progresses. The linebacker room is similarly impacted by these returns and roster adjustments. Deone Clark, once a starter under previous coaching schemes, appears to have fallen out of favor. Younger and more versatile players like Marvin No-Show, Logan Wilson, Kenneth Murray, and Maurice Hurst have risen through the pecking order, leaving Clark as the odd man out. If Jack Sanborn comes off injured reserve, the Cowboys may be unable to carry 7 linebackers on game day, which would likely push Clark further down the depth chart or result in him being inactive. This situation underscores the broader theme for the Cowboys. Every return from injured reserve triggers a domino effect, affecting multiple positions and requiring careful management of the entire roster. Offensively, the line remains a focal point of strategic roster planning. Ajani Cornelius and Hakeem Adonai represent depth options, but neither has seen significant action this season. With Tyler Tahn, Smith, BB, Booker, and the ongoing right tackle competition involving Thomas, Hoffman, and TJ Bass, the offensive line is crowded but competitive. Placing Cornelius on IR is a strategic way to retain him without forcing difficult cut decisions, ensuring the team has options if injuries strike again. Similarly, Adonai's limited snaps suggest he could serve as an emergency option while keeping the active roster balanced. Defensive tackle depth continues to be a concern with Perone Winfrey's potential return. The Cowboys already have a strong front, including Quinn Williams, Kenny Clark, and Solomon Thomas, but activating Winfrey could create a bottleneck at the position. Toya, a 7th-round pick, has contributed sparingly this season with limited snaps and production. Carrying 6 or more defensive linemen on game day may not be practical, meaning strategic IR placements or roster adjustments could become necessary. The coaching staff will need to weigh the benefit of Winfrey's return against the possibility of losing snap opportunities for other players, all while maintaining overall defensive effectiveness. Special teams, often overlooked, are another piece of the puzzle affected by returning players. Rebel and Bridges both contribute in this area, and their game day availability will influence which players see snaps on kickoff, punt coverage, and return units. Maintaining depth and performance on special teams is crucial, particularly late in games when field position and momentum can swing. The Cowboys are likely to carefully monitor snap counts, rotations, and roles to ensure they maximize both defensive and offensive contributions while keeping special teams sharp. Looking further ahead, roster management will also be influenced by long-term planning. Players like Phil Maffa and Josh Butler, who have been held on IR for strategic reasons, reflect the team's intent to preserve talent for next season. These decisions are not just about immediate gameplay, but about positioning the team for future success. Balancing immediate needs with long-term roster health is a key theme as the Cowboys navigate returning players, injury recovery, and active game day decisions. The Cowboys' approach to roster moves this season highlights the intricate chess game of NFL team management. Each decision, whether activating a player, stashing someone on IR, or adjusting snap counts, impacts multiple layers of the roster. Offensive line depth, defensive line rotations, cornerback and safety coverage, linebacker hierarchies, and special teams performance are all interconnected. Fans get to watch as the coaching staff evaluates injuries, monitors player performance, and makes critical decisions that will shape the team's success week by week. The strategy involves timing returns, prioritizing readiness, and sometimes making tough calls about who will play and who will sit. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Whispers are turning into roars across the NFL landscape as rumors swirl that Odell Beckham Jr. could be on his way to the Dallas Cowboys. What started as quiet chatter among insiders has exploded into a full-blown storm of speculation, sending fans and analysts scrambling to make sense of what could be one of the most talked-about moves in recent memory. According to sources close to the situation, Dallas has emerged as a surprise frontrunner to land the flamboyant wide receiver, whose name has long been linked with glamour, controversy, and jaw-dropping catches. The fit, many argue, makes perfect sense, The Cowboys have been seeking another offensive spark, and Beckham has never shied away from the big stage or the bright lights of Texas. The rumor mill began churning after Beckham was reportedly spotted in Dallas last week, fueling social media frenzy. Photos circulated showing him dining with what appear to be team representatives, though no official confirmation has been made by either camp. Still, the timing has raised eyebrows, especially as the Cowboys continue to look for ways to bolster their passing game heading into the second half of the season. Inside the locker room, the buzz is impossible to ignore. Several players have hinted carefully that something exciting could be brewing, while others have liked or commented on Beckham-related posts online, further igniting the speculation. Team owner Jerry Jones has neither denied nor confirmed the talks, only teasing that the Cowboys are always open to greatness. For many fans, that was enough to send their hopes soaring. For Beckham, a move to Dallas could mark yet another chapter in a career defined by headline moments and reinvention. After multiple stops and injury setbacks, the three-time Pro Bowler seems determined to prove he still has plenty left in the tank. And for the Cowboys, a union with Beckham could be both a statement and a gamble, a high-reward bet on one of football's most mercurial talents. Nothing is official, but the possibility alone has electrified the league. If the deal goes through, it could shake the NFC to its core. One thing's certain, when the words Odell Beckham Jr. and Dallas Cowboys appear in the same sentence, the sports world stops to listen. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.